This is it. People love it when you lose. They love dirty laundry, the antitrust mega thread. So there's just some great stuff in here about Amazon knowingly weakening diapers.com. I didn't even remember diapers.com.
That is so public and so old. Like, I read Jeff Bezos' biography probably 5 years ago, and that story is written out in full in that. Like,
Which is fine, but hold on a second. So, what's absorbing emails? Emails released by the antitrust subcommittee, though, detail Amazon's plan to weaken them, including undercutting them on price. Amazon was willing to lose $200 million in 1 month on diapers alone to make this move. Freaking crazy. And this is great. This is great. Jeff Bezos's testimony about this is, I cannot comment on that because I don't remember it. Can you imagine being in a position where you could simply not remember losing $200 million in a month? Put yourself in that mindset.
It was one of the first big moves.
Oh, yeah, of course he remembers it. But can you imagine? Okay, imagine thinking that saying you can't remember losing $200 million could even be remotely credible. Like, the guy's worth so much that, like, dropping $200 million on the street, it's like, oh yeah, I don't remember that. And someone else might go, sir, $200 million is a lot of money. Go, yeah, well, yeah, maybe to you, but like, I don't remember it. I'm sorry, I just don't.
Trillionaire.
Yeah, I'm not.
They also always focus on, or they talk about long-term thinking at Amazon. They say that, like, right now he's thinking about what's going to happen 3 years from now. So that diapers.com incident is decades away.
Yeah, he hasn't thought about it since 13 years ago, you know? It all just happened without him paying any attention to it, right? Genius. Apple has a really good one. So Apple has apparently been struggling with right to repair internally. This is really cool because I would love to see this debate that is clearly going on internally at Apple and now spilling out into the public. I would love to see Apple's customers and Apple's apologists who normally just defend this kind of bullshit from Apple start to call them on it. Because, guys, if your guru, your sensei, your supreme leader is also questioning this stuff, maybe it's time for you to question it too. So this is fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this up here. Internal discussions reveal what looks like Apple's united front against right to repair is really an internal debate rife with uncertainty. Apparently, a New York Times editorial in favor of right to repair last April set off a fire alarm inside of Apple's public relations team. And this is a quote: "The larger issue is that our strategy around all of this is unclear. Right now, we're talking out of both sides of our mouth, and no one is clear on where we're headed." So iFixit had unwittingly triggered another flurry of internal emails unearthed by the Judiciary Committee last March, where they discovered complete service manuals for the newest iMacs on Apple's support site. Now, this is crazy. The manuals are still there. Apple didn't reply to a request for comment, but they did look up the credentials of the person who asked for a request for comment, so Whitson here, and then launched a wide-ranging internal debate. And then the manual stayed online, but then an internal Apple memo goes, "What is our repair strategy?" Showing more division inside Apple than anybody knew.
Well, there is some cognitive dissonance there because every keynote they talk about how environmental they are. They're using materials that are recycled, or they're reclaiming different phones.
Yeah, or whatever. But then out of the other side of their mouth, devices that have been deactivated by their owners, but not in the special way so that they can be reactivated by another owner, are ending up in the garbage, like in the thousands and thousands and thousands.
At the same time that they're trumpeting the fact that your iPhone lasts you 5 years and they support it for so long. And so which is it? Is it longevity and low environmental impact or not?
Yeah, or is it just throw away your electronic devices and let all the horrible stuff leach into the soil because you just don't care about the planet that we live on? You can't have it both ways, Apple. So this is the last really telling quote here that I really like. "Right now, it's pretty clear things are happening in a vacuum and there's not an overall strategy. Plus, with one hand, we're making these changes, and with the other hand, we're actively fighting right to repair legislation. Come on, guys, let's get it together." And
Yeah,
now,
shareholders. That's a shareholders thing. The board knows we'll lose money if we have right to the repair stuff going on. So we need to lobby against that.
speaking of Apple having one story in public and another in private, recently they've been under fire for the 30% cut that they take in the App Store for subscription revenues that, quite frankly, they have nothing to do with. This is something that Floatplane has struggled with and is one of the reasons that the Floatplane app does not have any way to sign up for the service in it, because we cannot provide enough of a cut for ourselves to sustain the service and enough cut to make it worthwhile for creators, while also giving Apple 30% of the gross subscription revenue.
It's egregious. I think that should be regulated.
It just makes
30%.
It makes 30% of the gross revenue. And like, it's one thing if we want to use Apple's payment processor or whatever else, but no, we have put in the work to build our own stuff that has way less overhead than that. So we would really like to be able to use it. We can do it on the Google Play Store, but not in the App Store. And not only do they like not let you do it, they go through your app with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that if you have a way to subscribe off platform, there is no reference to it whatsoever within your app, except when they don't. So here's a great internal document: an Apple exec offering Amazon a 15% fee on subscriptions that signed up through the app instead of 30%. Oh, how about that? So you say, well, no, it's 30% for everyone, and here's all the justification. But oh, it turns out when it's a really big customer, oh, you can do something about that, which I get. That's fine, but don't lie about it. Just be upfront about it. Just say, well, yeah, there are special deals, because we understand that at a certain scale and for certain types of business, 30% makes absolutely no fucking sense. That's all there is to it.
What do you think about the idea that the antitrust idea that a lot of these companies will say that, Facebook doesn't have a monopoly because you can go and use something else. Like the App Store doesn't have a monopoly because you can get an Android phone and get the app there. Do you buy that? Because obviously you can't get a non-Apple phone and use iOS OS because it's all integrated, right? So is that another alternative that's realistic for consumers to turn to or not?
No, I don't really see how it is. Apple's walled garden approach was going to catch up to them eventually. I mean, looking at the way, honestly, I to be clear, I have no sympathy for 90s and 2000s Microsoft. For the most part, it's not like they didn't do their fair share of absolutely evil stuff. But the way that Microsoft got harassed about certain things, and the kinds of hoops they had to jump through about stuff like, Internet Explorer being included with Windows, it made sense from an antitrust standpoint, but what didn't make sense was that Apple got this free pass on their side to include their own web browser with special advantages and their own productivity suite with special advantages, and no one kind of batted an eye about it. And I looked at it and I went, well, this is just an absurd double standard. On the one hand, I understand why you're going after the big player, but on the other hand, if you're going to create these policies and you're going to enforce them, you should really be enforcing them with everyone, or we're just going to be 10, 15 years down the line and in exactly the same position with exactly the same abuses, because people are just people and they're kind of predictable.
Yeah, and it's weird how these companies, especially on the software side, like Facebook and Instagram, they compare themselves, like who they decide is a competitor or a relevant competitor and who is not. Like, oh, and a worthy alternative to Facebook is Google, for example. You're like, what? It's we don't have a monopoly because you can go to this thing. You're like, but consumers, we don't think of that. Like only
Yes.
Facebook does what Facebook does, and only Instagram does what Instagram does.
And the funny thing about you mentioning Google is that was a really good one for Facebook in the mega thread here. The original article here is from Ars Technica, and there's an email from the Zuck from way back in, hold on a second, when was it? 2012, where he had identified that Google was not, in fact, a competitor with Google Plus, even though that's exactly what Google was trying to do. But it was Instagram that they recognized as the real competitor. And I have to confess, in 2012, so that was back when Linus Media Group was starting up, I had just signed up on Twitter, let alone Instagram. I was like, what? So it's like Twitter, but you take a picture instead of posting text? And Twitter already had pictures anyway. I was like, what is the point of this? I actually still don't really understand the point of Instagram compared to Twitter. Functionally, they are basically the exact same thing to me. Can someone help me out here? James, what's the difference?
I know I have it, but I just don't use it. I don't know. There's more butts. There's more butts on Instagram.
There's more like buttocks.
Yeah, there's so many butts. There's a thing now where now that everybody has an OnlyFans, those people who have an OnlyFans, mostly women, they are now buying ad space from meme accounts. So if you just follow a random meme account because you want to see the funny cat photos, randomly on your newsfeed there'll be a video of butts or boobs because that entrepreneur who has an OnlyFans is paying that meme account to have a sponsored post. So now you can't be on Instagram without having butts.
Is that what you tell the wife
about why my wife told me this? My wife told me this yesterday. She's scrolling through her feed and there's someone like shaking their stuff. It's like, what is this?
Okay. So the YouTube chat is helping me out a little bit here. I just don't quite get it. Filters, like, yeah, but Twitter has filters for years.
I don't think filters were big at the beginning, but I don't know if people really care about them now.
People are like, a text limit. Okay, yeah, Twitter has a text limit, I guess, but there's like twit longer, whatever. There's a workaround. Twitter is a political hellhole. That's true. Twitter has become very, very toxic. Instagram is vanity Twitter, says R-By.
I think it actually just has to do with like the reward mechanism in your brain. It takes so much more effort to scroll through Twitter because it's text. But Instagram is just like a rat hitting the feeder bar for more serotonin. It's just like image. And every colorful little image just gives you a shot of dopamine.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I guess so. To be honest with you, that's one of the reasons I never scroll through my Facebook feed, because it is so much mental work to scroll through a Facebook feed. Half of it's, or not half of it, some of it's video, some of it's big walls of text, some of it's pictures, some of it's pictures of a wall of text because people are
Everything
idiots.
Comes from Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just, you have to kind of switch your brain into a completely different operating mode every time. I don't personally have trouble with Twitter that way, but I do find Twitter more exhausting to be on simply because, it just makes me like make that face a lot more often, you'll see something trending and you'll click on it expecting it to be like good, and then instead it's like horrible, and everyone is either a Russian bot or actually that stupid, and you're just not sure which one it is.
Hey, we should jump into our spot.